Let us all bring our palms together with utmost veneration to pay our respect to the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Undefeated One, the Unvanquished One, the Supreme Buddha. Let us remind ourselves that He is the teacher, He is the master, whose teaching we are today privileged and honored to be students of and practice, so that we may achieve the same liberation that He once did. Therefore, let us remind ourselves that this is not a mere token of our respect or a mark of our obeisance, but a pledge of our allegiance to the sublime truth and the practice that one must undertake to attain the ultimate bliss of Nibbāna. That is what the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha represent. Let us therefore chant the Namaskara in recognition of this. Seek refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, observe the precepts. Let us then invite the countless sentient beings and those who have been our relations in the countless times we have been born in samsara. Let us invite them and extend to them this opportunity to be amongst us, witness this meritorious deed, and also attain the bliss of Nibbāna. And once we have done all that, we will commence today's proceedings. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let's revisit what we discussed last week. Give me a show of hands if you weren't here last week. If you weren't. Okay. The rest of you were? Oh, you just can't remember. Is it come to that point in life where you can't remember past 1 or 2 days? A week is too long to remember now. Too far back to remember. You're not there yet, right? Good. I say yet. It's coming. Yeah. To you, to me, to everyone, it's coming. So, make hay while the sun shines. I'll ask you a question then. See whether you can offer me an answer that you are satisfied with. If I placed your eye in front of an object, and now you know that these objects are just, what are they? They're made of? Made of? Made of? Made of? They're not made of anything, right? It is energy. Good. It is not made of energy, it's just energy. What are you made of? You're not made of anything. Just energy. Yeah? So this is energy. Now in the Abhidharma, don't have to think of it as Abhidharma, but you've heard that matter or mass, the Buddha classifies it into 4 groups. They are called Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. The 4 base elements. So every element that you find in the periodic table can also be categorized or classified as Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu, because they are based on their characteristics, not necessarily their composition, their characteristics. Patavi is hardness, that sort of thing. In any case, what you do know is that this is energy. So, when you place an eye in front of an object, or the object in front of the eye, we see an image. Yeah? My question to you is this. Would it be right to say that for as long as this image or this object remains here, you will forever be able to see this image? I mean, notwithstanding any ailments, assume that the eye works. The eye is not going to, we are not talking about any visual impairments. The eye is fully functional. So don't tell me, well, if the eye stops working, then that's not what I'm talking about. So the eye is fully functional. There's no problem with the eye. Okay? For as long as this object is placed in front of this eye, and there's a light source, that's basic science. Would it be right for me to say that for as long as this object is placed in front of the eye, this image will be seen? Yes or no? Yes? No? Then what's this? Why are some people going? Like those olubakas you have on the dashboard. Some people are trying to play it safe. Some. So is it a yes or a no? Yeah, okay, that's where we get both here. So I'm hearing some yeses and some no's. Those who say yes, why do you say yes? And those who say no, why do you say no? Those who say yes, why do you say yes? Well, that's unfair for me to ask in this format. One speaker and an audience. If you all started giving me answers, then I assume what you're saying is, well, as long as the causes align, right, then you should be able to see it. So the image will forever be seen for as long as this object will forever be there and the eye is operational, the eye is functional. So I understand what you mean. If that was your answer, fair enough. But then there were some who said no. Why is that? What's that? Chitta. What about chitta? Okay, I think here's what you're suggesting here. So there's a chitta, and that is what this image is. Because we understand what the mind is now. We spoke about this last week as well. We'll go over some of that stuff. But this energy and this energy, although they're both energy, they come from two sources. There are two sources of energy. This is energy in the form of mass. Whereas this is energy that comes from your karmic strand. Yeah? So, potentially, here's what could happen. Here's what could happen. You can keep that object in front of the eye, and there forever to be a light source, and the eye to forever be working, right? But if you consume all this vipaka. You can keep staring at the object. If you consume all this vipaka, let's say you consume this at however many packets of energy and vipaka energy at a time, right? By the time you have consumed all this, what's going to happen? What would happen? You would not be able to see this image. Even if the eye is fully functional and the object remains there unharmed. Let me repeat that. Let's make sure we are all on the same page here. If you kept that object in front of the eye and there forever to be a light source, you know what typically would happen? You would have a chitta that would arise and you see an image. Right? You know that this is an image of the object. This is not the object. Right? We understand that now. This is vipaka. This vipaka is drawn from your karmic strand. So what's going to happen if you consume all this vipaka? It's because, of course, as you look at something, listen to something, feel something, experience something, you're drawing on vipaka, aren't you? So by the time you have consumed all your vipaka, would there be another chitta? Can a chitta arise without vipaka? They can't, right? So this image would not be able to manifest if there was no vipaka. Meaning, the eye could still work, the object could still be there, but you would see no image. Is that clear to everyone? No? Alright, one more time. And if that doesn't work, one more time. And another time. Before I come to that, answer this question for me then. Can you hear me speak? Is it my voice you hear? Is it? Are you hearing the sounds that I'm making? Because I'm not making any sounds here. I can't make sounds. Yeah. All I can produce are vibrations. So as my voice box vibrates, there's a column of air, and that vibrates, and there's air in my mouth, and there's air between you and I, and that vibrates, and then there's air in your ear canal, that vibrates, and that vibrates the eardrum. Yeah? So you know that all that way are merely physical vibrations. There's no sound in any of this. And then it goes into your internal ear, and then there are electrical impulses that reach your brain, and the only point at which you hear sound is when one of these happen. A chitta is born. So is it my voice that you hear right now? Is it? No. So if when you hear something, that is a vipaka coming to fruition. Are we familiar with this? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. And we know that all of this is vipaka. We talked about this last week. Don't worry, we'll go back over it, but this is... I'm trying to convince you of something really interesting here. I'm trying to help you understand something very interesting here. This is vipaka. This is vipaka. So is this, and this, and this, and this. When one of these happen, this is a process. When one of these happen, you have seen something, or you have heard something. It is when one of these happen, you have felt something, tasted something, smelled something. Yeah? Granted that this will not come to fruition unless you create an environment. So an object must be placed in front of a sense door for a vipaka to come to fruition. That is fair enough. But the image that you see, the sound that you hear, is not the object itself. It's what we can call an impression of that object, which is merely vipaka coming to fruition. So if it's merely vipaka coming to fruition, okay, if it's merely your karmic energy coming to fruition, what do you think might happen if you just keep staring at an object? So as you keep staring, you've created the environment now for vipakas to come to fruition, and you just start consuming these vipakas. And there comes a point where these vipakas run out. What would happen then? Would you still see the image? Would you? Yes or no? No. Because you would not see the image, because what you see is not what's in the outside world. What you see is an impression of the object. Yes, if the object was not presented, you would not see it. But once the object is presented, you see it, but you don't see it. It's wrong to say, I see it. So, can you see this? Can you see this? Yes? Yes or no? You're like those Candian dancers. Malak. Can you see this? This object in my hand, can you see it? No, what are you seeing there? Yes, you're simply seeing an image. And that image is an amount of energy, vipaka energy coming to fruition. So, if you keep staring at this object and you keep consuming vipaka, because vipaka is consumed every time you see something. Let's not think about karma for a second, because of course you are always recharging these batteries, right? Just ignore karma for a second. If you are an Arahanth, then assume that. At least assume that. If you're an Arahanth, then what's not happening? Your batteries aren't no batteries being recharged, right? So no karma. See, this energy is not rejuvenated. It's only consumed. So if an Arahanth were to keep staring at this, at one point, they would go blind. Not blind because the eye doesn't work anymore, not blind because the object is not present anymore, but blind because what? They have expired, consumed, exhausted their vipaka. If that is the case, ladies and gentlemen, right, here's the big reveal. If that is the case, if once your vipaka is consumed, is exhausted, you can no longer see anything, what are you seeing right now in the first place? Is it the object? Is it this object you're seeing right now? No. All that's happening is this is creating an environment. You have the sense door, I have an object. When these two things align, now you have one of these vipakas coming to fruition. Therefore, what you see is only your vipaka. You have never seen anything outside vipaka. You have never seen anything outside vipaka. So if you want to know what vipaka is like, because you can't touch them, one might question, where is vipaka? Where do I see vipaka? What does a vipaka feel like? If you ever want to know what does the vipaka feel like, well, that's what it feels like. What you're seeing right now, that's vipaka. That's not this object. When you stick your finger in the fire or touch something hot, that's what vipaka feels like. You're hearing something right now. It would be wrong to say you're hearing my voice. That's just a some convention we have agreed upon using, that you're hearing my voice. You're hearing something right now. That is what vipaka feels like. When you taste something, that's what vipaka feels like. So what are you? What is this experience? It's just vipaka, that's it, nothing more. So you are merely the mechanism of consuming vipaka. You are nothing more than that. Are you anything more than seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and thinking? Have you ever done anything other than that? Seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, feeling and thinking. Have you ever done anything more than that? So it has always been one of these 5 or 6 things, right? And what are they? Collectively? Vipaka. So what are you then? What is this experience you are going through right now? This is what vipaka is. This is what vipaka is. This is what vipaka looks like. This is what vipaka smells like. This is what vipaka tastes like. This is what vipaka feels like. This is what vipaka is like. Seeing. That's vipaka. Here's where it goes wrong. When you say, I am seeing, that's not vipaka. Because right now, both of these things will be happening with you. You're looking at something, aren't you? You're seeing something. You think you're looking at me. In fact, you think that what you see is me. You're seeing Swaminathan. That's not Swaminathan you're seeing. You're seeing a vipaka. Vipaka is what's happening right now. It's coming to fruition. This is the experience of vipaka. What does ice feel to the touch? Cold? Sure. Ice is cold? Is ice cold? Is ice cold? Yes? No? Or don't know? The answer is no. Why is the answer no? What is coldness? What is coldness? A vipaka. So how can vipaka be in an ice? In a block of ice? So after a while you'll walk around turning these things up and down. What? The air conditioners. Right? Because some of you will say it's too warm, others will say it's too cold. When you say it's too warm or it's too cold, what do you think? What are you really referring to? What is it actually, and what do you think it is? First, what do you think it is? It's the temperature around you, like the air. You think the air is cold or the air is warm, but what is it actually? That's just a vipaka. That's just a vipaka. So quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, you have never experienced anything outside this pool of vipaka. You have never experienced anything outside this vipaka. So that's all you are. You're nothing more than that. Each and every experience you've had in your life, each and every experience you've had in samsara has merely been one of these coming to fruition. And they happen so rapidly, in quick succession, and never two at a time, but one after the other, like a constant supply of energy. But it's always been vipaka. Slow or fast, it has always only been vipaka. So when one of these come, for example, you'll see something, and the next one comes, you hear something, the next one comes, you feel something, the next one comes, you see something again. But you see how wrong we are when we think that what we see are objects in the outside world. Isn't that what your mind thinks you're looking at? Look at the decorations behind me. What are you looking at right now? The decorations behind me. What do you think you're seeing right now? The decorations behind me. See, that's wrong. That's not true. Can you feel the floor beneath your feet right now? Really? Come to your senses. Come on. Do you think that's the floor beneath your feet that you're feeling right now? What does it feel like? Hard? It's a hard floor, isn't it? What is hardness? It's just a vipaka. So the flow isn't hard. This feeling of hardness that you are experiencing right now it's not the flow. It's not coming from the flow. The seat you're on right now, the chair, it's cushioned, isn't it? So it's, on the contrary to what the flow is, it is soft. So the seat is soft. The cushion is soft. Right? So that feeling of softness that you are experiencing right now, that's coming from the cushion, right? Yes? Come on. That's coming from the cushion, isn't it? But isn't that what your mind tells you? Because if that were true, if what your mind says to you is true, then you must be able to consume all this vipaka and still feel softness and hardness. I mean, put all that to aside, even if you don't believe in karma and vipaka, how can the feeling of softness travel through a neuron? How can the feeling of softness travel through a neuron? Because that's your new nerve cells that carry these impulses to your brain, right? So how can it travel through a neuron? That's just an electrical potential. It's a current that flows. So do you understand then that all these experiences that you have, that you call sensory experiences, are not really things that come through your senses at all? These are not sensory experiences at all. Color is not something you take in through your eyes. Your rods and cones in the back of your eye, on your retina, they're not sensitive to color, which goes completely against what you learned at school. Because what we learned at school was there are rods and cones and they are receptive to red, green, blue and so on. But red, green and blue are not things that exist in the outside. Those are mere vipakas. So if I had some way to sift through your vipaka and take out everything that had the potential to show you red, then you would no longer see red no matter how good your eyes were. See, the optician can work on problems here. A neuroscientist can work on problems in your nerves. A brain surgeon can fix the optic center. Physicists can put objects in front of your eyes. But if you didn't have the vipaka, there would be no image. Because it is not the object that you see. You have never really seen any objects at all. Okay, so then here's a question. One might ask, Swamina, so then why do we wear spectacles? With or without, we should still say the same image. Right? But you know from experience, well, at least those of you who are privileged and honored to join the club that I am in, the spectacle club, you will know that if you take them off, you see a different image to the one that you see with them on. Right? Those who don't have this experience, tough. Just wait for it. So here's what really goes on. When you put your spectacles on, assume that it's this vipaka that comes to fruition. Right? If you take them off, it's not that one that comes to fruition. It's some other vipaka that comes to fruition. It's not that you now see the object more clearly. It's not that. It's just a different vipaka. Now, the fact that I've drawn this one below the other gives you an impression that they come in some sort of order. That's not how it works. Because this ordering only happens retrospectively. It's not like they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the first one, first in, first out. There is no such order to it. Just assume that it's just like from the well, you pull water. You put your pail in and you get water out. There's no water waiting to go first, right? And the second lot of water and so on. So it's just vipaka all over the place. It's more appropriate to, in fact, represent it like this. But retrospectively, what can you do? You can put them in some kind of order, chronological order even, and say this is the order in which they came to fruition, right? But what really goes on, ladies and gentlemen, is there's just a whole bunch of vipaka. So in here will be those that give you clear vision. There will be those that give you, what vision shall we call it? Blurred vision, thank you. So there's blurred vision. So this is clear vision, blurred vision, clear vision, blurred vision, blurred vision, blurred vision, clear vision, blurred vision. So when you put your glasses on, now these clear visions, they come to fruition. You can't see any of that, can you now? It's just a bunch of scribbles. But the moment you put your glasses back on, what did I say? When you take off your glasses, you see this. No, with the glasses on, you get this clear vision. Take them off, and what happens? While the clear vision vipakas are there, it's still there. Right? They will still be in this vipaka pool. The blurry vision vipakas, they come to fruition. So what do your glasses do really? It merely creates the environment for a vipaka to come to fruition. So does it beg pardon? For clear vision vipakas to come to fruition. That's what your glasses do, right? So then, here's my question. Those who don't wear glasses, those of you who don't wear glasses, you think you don't have any blurry vision vipakas? Oh, it's all there. It's all there. They just haven't started coming to fruition yet. Because your eye is still able to focus light on the right part of it. So that is a physical factor. But that's not to say you don't have vipaka for blurry vision. And then for those of us who are gifted with 2 sets of eyes, when we take our glasses off, what happens then? Those blurry vision vipakas, they start coming to fruition. And you put them back on, the clear vision vipakas start coming to fruition. What that says is, all we see is what our vipakas let us see. Because seeing is not what we do with the outside world. Seeing is merely vipakas coming to fruition. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, what are you? What is this experience of life that we're talking about? It's just vipaka coming to fruition, that's all. It's just vipaka coming forth. That's all it is. Therefore, you have never seen an external object. You have never seen another human being. You have never seen a flower. You have never seen a tree. You have never seen an animal. You have never seen your pets, nor your children. These are not things that you can see. Because what is seen is an image. An image is not the product of a physical world. An image is not formed of patavi, tejo, vayu. They are not formed of those things. They are formed of vipaka. This rupa is vipaka. This vedana is vipaka. Sanya, sankara and vijnana are vipaka. For simplicity's sake, you can consider that one of these quantities of vipaka that is released from this karmic strand has all the energy that is required for rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara and vijnana to occur. Right? So assume that, for simplicity's sake, when one of these comes to fruition, it has enough energy for all 5 of these. So the day that you run out of vipaka, what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to you the day you run out of vipaka? Can an Arahanth be alive indefinitely? What do you think? Why not? Because an Arahanth is simply the process of consuming vipaka. They consume vipakas. Therefore, once vipakas are exhausted, what's going to happen to the Arahanth? What Arahanth? What do we mean by an Arahanth? See, I asked you that question to kind of trap you. Right? What's going to happen to the Arahanth? What is the Arahanth then? It's just energy. See, when we refer to an Arahanth, is it the body? Is it the body that is an Arahanth? No, the body is not an Arahanth. What we mean by an Arahanth is not an individual. An Arahanth is not an individual. An Arahanth is a process. A process, the process of consuming vipaka. That is what an Arahanth is. Void of yet another process, which is the defiling process. So when these two processes run together in parallel, the vipaka process and the defiling process, we don't refer to this as an Arahanth. But when this defilement process ceases, and you simply have the vipaka process, which is merely vipakas coming to fruition, that process is what is called an Arahanth, not an individual. But we tend to call Rahatan Vahanse. There is no Rahatan Vahanse in Rahatan Vahanse. But we are so accustomed to thinking like that it's an individual whose mind is free of defilements. That's how we tend to think of a Rahatan Vahanse, right? A Rahatan Vahanse is an individual whose mind is free of defilements. So what is the mind then? So where is the Rahatan Vahanse whose mind is free of defilements? I don't know whether you understand the question. This is jolly good stuff for me. Sometimes I frankly don't care whether it makes sense to you or not. It's just fun for me to just talk about this stuff. You're my guinea pigs. I just need someone to listen to me, that's all. And then I could just keep blabbering on. So, here's how we think the world is, right? So there's an Rahatan Vahanse. There's a Rahat Anvanse, right? The Rahat Anvanse is there. What's he doing? He's just there. Right? And then he has a mind. And he has a body. I can't draw the body like that. Well, that's the body. And he has a mind. Honestly, isn't this how we perceive a Rahatan Vahanse? We think that there's a Rahatan Vahanse who has a body and a mind. And this mind is free of defilements. So the Rahatan Vahanse's mind is free of defilements. That's how we tend to think. But then, where is that Rahatan Vahanse whose mind is free of defilements? There is no Rahatan Vahanse whose mind is free of defilements. A mind free of defilements is what we refer to as Rahatan Vahanse. But the moment you say this Vahanse part, that you throw that Vahanse part into it, immediately you feel like, okay, that's a person we're talking about, like Swami Vahanse. Or like Mahatya, right? Or like Nona. Because you feel that there's an individual here whose mind is now free of defilements. What I want you to really wrap your heads around is the fact that there is no individual whose mind is free of defilements and whose mind is with defilements. It's just the process. It is just the process. You are merely a process. You are the process of vipakas coming to fruition. But it's not just that, because there's also the defilement process. It's like two trains that run parallel to each other. So these two trains, they run parallelly. The defilement process and the vipaka process. Once the defilement process stops, well, all that's going to happen is these vipakas, they just keep coming to fruition. So one of these is one of these. At the point it comes to fruition. Until then we call it karmic energy. The point it comes to fruition, we call it vipaka energy. Whose vipaka energy is that? The Rahatan? Go. The Rahatan process. The problem with us is, because we have this defilement process, it's very difficult for us to think anything other than the presence of an individual who has a mind that's free of defilements, and they also have a body. That's the way our minds tend to think. In fact, that's how you think about yourselves as well. That's why you say, this is my mind and my body. Don't you sometimes, I can't control my mind? You say, how can I focus my mind, Swaminatha? How can I control the thoughts that I have, Swaminatha? How can I focus my mind on something? I want to clear my mind, Swaminatha. Don't you come and talk to your teachers, Swaminatha, as you take counsel? How do I settle my mind? Whose mind? My mind. So there's me, and then there's my mind. Right? My mind's not doing what I want it to do. See, this is how we tend to think about the world and ourselves. When you want to forget something, what is your mind being? Disobedient, isn't it? You want to forget something, you just don't want to think about something. So you feel that there's you, and then there's your mind that just won't play ball. You want your mind to forget something, but it just keeps going back to the same thing. So there's a you, and then there's your mind. I need you to understand the flaw with that way of thinking. Because if you understand the flaw with that way of thinking, ladies and gentlemen, that is the beginning of your end. First you have to come to a realization that that way of thinking is wrong. I really want you to come to that way of, that understanding, that realization. That way of thinking is wrong. In a conventional world, everyday world, let's use that language. It's fine. So someone comes and asks you, what's on your mind? So don't jump back and say, no, there's not me and my mind. Right? Correct yourself. You have to say, what's on mind? Right? Don't say, what's on your mind. So you don't need to correct people like that. Everyday language, we just speak in conventional terms. But actually that sentence is wrong, isn't it? Isn't that question wrong? Syntactically, yes, it's right, but semantically, once you look at it through the lens of Dhamma, semantically that question is wrong. How can you say what's on your mind? Then the question comes, whose mind are you talking about? You, your mind, what's on your mind? So it means there's a you, and then there's your mind. So where's that you? Which part of it is that? That's exactly what we are trying to come out of here. That's what this class is for. That's why we have come together, to come out of this way of thinking. All there is the mind. There's no you who has a mind. Does that make sense, folks? Does it really make sense? Truly? Yes? That there's no you to have a mind, it's just the mind. Like when we watched that video last week, and I asked you, what is the hair made of? And initially we just said cells. And I asked you, really? Is the hair made of cells? After a few times you figured, no, it's not that the hair is made of cells. The hair is cells. Yeah? In the same way, you have a mind is wrong, isn't it? You are the mind. Of course, there are two parts to you. There's the mind and there's the body. But then why do you still feel like it's your mind? That is because of the defilement process. So as these two processes run together, you can't help but think and perceive that there's an individual whose mind it is that you're experiencing. That is what we have come to the sasana to understand. Because for as long as you feel that there's a you whose mind you have somehow harnessed and whose mind is somehow with you, it's that thinking that keeps you stuck in samsara. Because here's what happens when that happens. Here's what happens when that happens. You know what I mean. For as long as you think that there's a you, right? Now listen to this carefully. For as long as you think that there's a you, whose mind it is that you're experiencing right now, when one of these vipakas come to fruition, right? The vipaka process, or the mind, as we talked about last week, is merely the process of dissipating this energy into the universe. No, we didn't talk about that. That was at the monastery. So I'll talk about that now. Let me put the lesson on the board again. Right. So we have an object. We have a sense organ. And we have a chitta. You understand that this is Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara and Vijnana. This is a vipaka. Actually, it's karmic energy that has now transformed to vipaka energy. Okay? So at this point we call it karmic energy. Just different names of the same stuff, only rearranged, that's all. When it transforms to vipaka energy, like cells that specialize. So there are cells, I think they call them Masked cells? Cells that specialize? What are they called? Masked cells? MAST? Stem cells. Stem cells? I think so. They specialize into various types of cells. Stem cells, huh? Stem cells. Let's go with stem cells. So like that, we have karmic energy, but this karmic energy, at the point of coming to fruition, they specialize into either sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and so on. Okay? This is what we call the skandha process, or the energy consumption process. What happens when one of these happens, ladies and gentlemen, is this energy, which actually belongs to the universe, is now dissipated, released. So you can think of the mind as the instrument that releases karmic energy back to the universe. That is what a Arahanth is, basically. So what a Arahanth does, now you understand it's wrong for me to say that, but let's go with it just for the sake of this conversation. What a Arahanth does is he or she releases karmic energy to the universe. So he's kind of like a recycling machine. He just releases karmic energy to the universe. Whose karmic energy? Just karmic energy, that's the point. It's not his or her karmic energy. Because that is what a mind is. The mind's job is to release karmic energy back to the universe so that it can become just about anything. That being said, it is not what happens in most minds. In the majority of minds, it is not what happens. What happens is, it returns to the karmic strand. Because of what process? The defiling process. When a karma happens, this energy which is supposed to be dissipated, just released into the universe, is now recaptured. This is the point at which it was supposed to be free. Right? Off you go. That's what the mind was supposed to say. Or do at least. But when you have a karma happen there because of the defilement process, this energy which is supposed to be released is recaptured. And then return to the karmic strand. Why does it do that? Because what is karma? Karma is the misinterpretation of energy. It's the result of misinterpretation of energy. Remember what results in karma? We drew it the other day on the board. Avidya, or ignorance. You have attachment, ignorance, supposed to be I. Attachment, vexation, abhisankara, bhava, and jati. This abhisankara, this is the plan. Bhava is the point at which this energy which is supposed to be released is recaptured. It's re-enveloped. This is energy that was about to be released into the wild, so to speak. It's back into the universe, right? Because it's now served its purpose. This karmic energy has served its purpose by being a vipaka. So now it's time to finally be released to the universe. But when this happens, it's recaptured and returned to the karmic strand as karmic energy. So this is the process, this karma, this defilement process is the process that separates universal energy. It is the process that separates universal energy. Because what happens then is you have various karmic strands. See? Each of these karmic strands is a separation of universal energy. So for each individual here, there's a karmic strand. And not just human beings. If there's a fly in the room, there's a karmic strand. If there's an ant on the floor, there's a karmic strand. If there's a bacteria, there's a karmic strand. Each of these karmic strands is separation of universal energy. That energy is no longer available to the universe for any other purpose other than the experiential process of the mind. But minds, if they are pure, free of defilements, what are they supposed to do? Release that energy back to the universe. And that is what a Rahatan Vahansa is. So the Rahatan Vahansas are like the universe's recycling machines. They're just free, captured energy. That's what they do. They release captured energy. Why are you incapable of that just yet? Exactly. Because you feel that you are an individual. Because you feel that you're an individual, you have this desire to be you. That is your most basic desire. Your most basic and most primitive desire is to be you. First I have to be me, and then I have to be doing things as me. Right? What's the most important thing to you? To be you. And then to do the things that you like to do. But first, you have to be you, right? So because you have the desire to be you, you have to capture that energy now. You can't just release it, because you have to be you. And therefore, you keep on recapturing that. What is supposed to be released, you entrap it again, and then put it back into karmic strands. This is the process of samsara. This is why you can never stop seeing. I don't know if you understand the profoundness of what I'm sharing with you. This is why you can never stop seeing, ladies and gentlemen. How long have you been seeing now? All of samsara, right? And you're still seeing. Why are you still seeing? Because you're constantly capturing this energy that was supposed to be released. If you had let one instance of seeing, right? If you had simply consumed one instance of seeing and released that energy to the universe, you would not have needed to see again. But that is not how your mind works. Your mind keeps on recapturing that energy, therefore you keep on seeing, you keep on hearing, you keep on smelling, you keep on tasting, you keep on feeling, you keep on thinking, therefore you keep on existing in samsara. Because I asked you this question earlier, when you say that you have come in samsara, or at least in this life, what is it you have been doing? Only one of these 6 things. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling and thinking. Right? So if you needed to stop going in samsara, then you have to stop what? The same 6 things. What else? Do you agree? If you want to stop samsara, then you have to stop those 6 things, because it is those 6 things you do in samsara, nothing more. But why can't you stop those 6 things? Because what was supposed to be just an instance of seeing, and then that's it, be the end of it, because of this karma, because of this defilement process, and the desire to be you, what happens? You recapture that energy and preserve it for future use. And what does that energy do again? Gets you to see something, hear something, smell something, taste something, feel something, think something. And that's what you're doing right now. This is an incessant loop. So tell me then, which of these two is the problem? Is it seeing or the desire to be you? The desire to be you. Seeing is not a problem. If seeing is not a problem, must you have your eyes closed? So if you want to practice the Dhamma, practice the teaching, practice this philosophy and free yourself from samsara, and let's say you want to meditate, must you have your eyes closed? Why not? Seeing is not the problem. If seeing was the problem, then of course you'd have to keep your eyes closed, because every time you see there's a problem. Seeing is not the problem. Then is hearing the problem? Then why must you isolate yourself? Why do you go on these retreats? Those retreats. You retreat from society, retreat from the world, isolate yourself. Why do you have to have a separate room at home where you go in, sit down, close the doors, ask everyone else to leave and say, shush, I'm going to meditate now? No sounds, please. Silence. Why do they say, like in exam halls, they have exam in process or progress, silence please, right? Why do you also need meditation in progress? Silence please. Is that necessary? So if someone's meditating, must we keep quiet? You won't have me back next Sunday, will you? So if someone's really, truly meditating, in the way that I'm trying to describe this to you, if someone's truly meditating, must they have their eyes closed? Must they have their ears shut? Smell? That's the funny thing, right? You can close your eyes and your ears. But what about the rest of it? You can still feel the floor beneath your feet. You can feel the temperature. All those feelings are still there. You can feel the internal, your body doing stuff. All of that is felt. But haven't we got into this sort of thinking that if we are to meditate, now we must shut out the whole world? The lights should be dimmed. Not off, dimmed. But sounds? No sounds. No sounds. Everyone has to be silent, quiet. But hearing is not the problem. Hearing is not the problem. Because hearing is just a vipaka. So why does it matter which vipaka comes to fruition? Whether it's a seeing vipaka, a hearing vipaka, a smelling vipaka, a tasting vipaka, a physical sensation vipaka, a thinking vipaka, why does it matter which vipaka comes to fruition? It's just another vipaka, that's it. That is not the problem. The problem is the desire to be you. Because there's a desire to be you, when each of those vipakas come to fruition, your desire to be you does what to you? Does what to those vipakas? They individualize those vipakas. They personify those vipakas, and you start to identify those vipakas as an entity, as an individual, as a you who's going through that experience. So seeing doesn't stop at seeing. Seeing becomes I see, or I am seeing. See, that is the part that's the problem, not the seeing part. Now, how do you shut yourself out of that? So you're agreeing with me that see, or to see, is not the problem. You're agreeing with me on that, aren't you? Yeah? Okay. This is the problem. Or at least I am seeing. So seeing is not the problem. Then really to meditate, what part must you shut out? The seeing part or the I am part? I am part. So how are we going to shut that out? Which retreat center? Which Valimalu are you going to shut that out? Huh? Shall we leave home? Is that going to work? And go to the Himalayas? Maybe take ourselves somewhere into the forest or into a cave? How do you shut out I am? Well, there's only one way to shut that out. That is the Dhamma. Anicca, dukkha, anatta is the only way to shut out your sense of self. See, I've just explained to you by talking you through the karma and vipaka process why seeing is not the problem. I really hope you understand that and take that away from today's talk. Seeing is not the problem. When seeing happens, you're merely consuming a packet of energy. That's it. So what? If all you do is see, there'll come a point where you won't see anymore because you have consumed all your vipaka. There will come a point where you won't see anymore. That's why I say an Arahanth Mahanse cannot go on forever. Their days are numbered quite literally, because the day that their vipakas are consumed, what would happen? The chittas will stop. Because if there's no vipaka, how can you produce a chitta? How can there be a rupa vedana sanya sankara vijnana? Because this is merely a vipaka or a karmic energy, a quantity of karmic energy transformed as vipaka. That's it. Nothing more. So this is seeing. This is an instance of seeing, an instance of smelling, an instance of tasting. And that's not the problem. What keeps you going back in samsara is, you see, remember what I said? A chitta is the process of releasing that captured energy back to the universe. If you just let that happen, you would be natural. This is when we say that this is natural. This is a natural process. But we are unnatural. We are unnatural because when this is what is supposed to happen, you now have a defiling process. Ignorance steps in, attachment steps in, the need to be you steps in, and what was supposed to just be released to the universe is again captured. And what is captured now joins the karmic strand. To do what again? Come to fruition again, comes back. There are questions, I know. Let's keep it for the end or another time. If I start opening the audience for questions, there will be hundreds of questions, I know. But I appreciate the questions. Keep those questions in mind and keep listening to the sermon. Many of those will be answered in a moment. So what are you then? I mean, ultimately this is the point I want to bring you to. All of this is to help you understand what you are. You are only in samsara because you don't know who the heck you are. Who the heck are you? You honestly don't have an answer to this because you don't know. You don't know who you are. Therefore, you are going through samsara trying to figure that out. That's exactly what you're doing. You're going through samsara trying to figure out, who am I? In every chitta, you're trying to figure out who you are. That's why whenever a chitta rises and passes away, in this chitta you try to figure out who you are. How do you try to figure out who you are? You go through this, keep drawing it. Ignorance, attachment, vexation, abhisankara, bhava, jati. This is the process of trying to discover who you are. We call it the defilement process. But this can only survive one chitta. So the moment this chitta passes away and the next one arises, once again you're back to square one, asking yourself, who the heck I am? Or who the heck am I? And then that chitta arises and passes away. There comes a tiny point where, just before it passes away sort of, where this experience of jati manifests. And you go, whoa, I've just figured out who am I. I've just figured out who I am. And that gives you a deep sense of joy and satisfaction. But the moment that happens, the chitta has passed away and another one arises. And now you've got to figure it out again. Who am I? Just imagine if you had short-term memory loss. Just imagine if you had short-term memory loss, right? And you'd walk up to me and ask me, Swaminathan, no, you don't even know Swaminathan, who am I? Okay, you are Sunil. Ah, Sunil. Who am I? Sunil. Ah, Sunil. Who am I? Just imagine if that were to happen to you. That's exactly what's happening to you. Not have to imagine, that is what's happening to you. That's exactly what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, this is not a small problem. This is a massive problem. You need to understand this. Don't take this lightly. In every chitta, you try to define who you are. You're desperately then dipping into memory, trying to get fragments of memory to try and build up a picture of who you are, going into a state of vexation, trying to figure out who you are. And thanks to vexation, you have abhisankara, then a sense of self has to be created to give you a sense of who you are. This is desperation. Then tell me, what did the Bodhisattva discover under the Bodhi tree? What did he discover? He discovered who he was. That's what he discovered. He finally found an answer to, who am I? A Rahatan Mahansa is someone who has discovered who he is. He's one who has discovered that he's a chitta. It's wrong to say that he is a chitta. I mean, how can a chitta have a gender? Right? It's wrong to say he's a chitta. It's just a chitta. Would you say that he is a pen? Would you say he's raining? No, right? Because it's just a process. So there cannot be a gender to a process. Yes? This is a process. The process of what? Karmic energy come into fruition. That is the process. That is what you are. Why do you think you are more than that? Why do you think you are a woman? Why do you think you're a man? Yes, because of the defilement process. See, when one of these chittas come to fruition, you take stock of what information you have. You have memory, and in your memory you have a definition of your gender. At some point in your life you figured out that you are either man or woman. And that's a piece of information you have in your memory. That's why you don't always have to look at your body to figure out who you are. I mean, imagine that every time you're going to keep doing like this to figure out whether you're man or woman. You don't have to do that because your memory has this information that you are either man or woman. But the sad part of this is, you have to keep doing that in every chitta. Figure out what your gender is. You're not male or female, you're confused. That's what you are. So, in every chitta, you have to go running to your memory and figure out, what is my gender? No, seriously. Because you also have a piece of knowledge in your memory that says that you are someone who has to have a gender. That is part of your definition. Otherwise, one might ask, why should I go to memory to find out what my gender is if I didn't know that I needed to have a gender? No, you do. Because you know that you are a human being. And human beings have gender. Therefore, in every chitta that arises, you have to go and reconfirm your profile. You have to redraw your profile. It's actually quite a tragedy. Why does it not feel so hectic? Although there seems to be so much going on to keep you alive and keep you the way you are, not keep you alive, but rather to keep you the way you are with your sense of identity. When there's so much going on, why does it not feel so hectic? Do you know why that is? Because you're just so blooming used to it now. That's why. There's so much work that's going on right now just to give you an awareness of what your identity is. Right? There's so much work going on there that you have just become so used to it now that you don't feel that to be you is hard work. That's why you will never know. You will never know what an Arahanth feels like until you become one. That's one of those things that you can never imagine. That tranquility, the peacefulness that an Arahanth feels. Just imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, not to have to define your identity in every chitta. Because you have come to the understanding that there is no such thing called an identity. Just imagine that. It's going to be difficult to even imagine that. When you set out your house to go somewhere, don't you check yourself to make sure your hair is okay, you've got your stuff, you've got your keys, you've got your glasses, you've got your handbag, you've got your this, that and the other. Right? There's so much work to do just to step outside your front door, isn't there? Check your makeup, check your clothes, check your shoes, check your whatevers. That's just to step outside. Can you imagine just the feeling of being free from that? Just imagine that for a second. Okay, I'll give you something more relatable. To go to work, you got to iron your clothes. To go to work, to go to school, to go to a party, whatever. You have to iron your clothes, right? Unless you're fortunate enough to have someone who does the ironing for you. But either they do it and you pay them to do it, or you do it yourself. Right? I remember the day I became a monk. The day before was the last day. I ironed my last shirt, my final pair of trousers. Ever since, I've not had to iron anything. You have no idea how much freedom that is. But to you now, ironing is simply a chore that you are used to. It feels so normal because it's what you do either every day or every night. The morning commute, it's just something you're so used to, right? Getting stuck in traffic. Something very used to. That's why when people come from other countries sometimes where they don't have as much traffic, they go back to their countries talking about how horrible the traffic is in our country. That's because they're not used to it. But we grew up with this amount of traffic, and it's only been getting worse, but we are used to this stuff. But just imagine I mean, why do you look forward to your holidays? Why do you look forward to a holiday? Because you don't have the morning commute. You don't have to wake up at whatever time you have to wake up in the morning. You don't have to iron your clothes. You can just relax because no one's there to judge you. No one's there watching you. You can just be yourself, right? Now just think about that freedom. Just think about that freedom alone. Now think about what an Arahant must feel like. Someone who doesn't even need an identity. Someone who doesn't need to remind themselves whether they are male or female. Just think about that for a second. Because you're doing it with every chitta. Because you're doing it with every chitta, you have no idea how taxing this is on you. How much work this is. This is a lot of effort, ladies and gentlemen. I know, right now you're looking at me like, I don't know what this man is talking about. What effort? I can completely understand why you're looking at me perplexed. What effort, Swaminath? I am me. I mean, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this age, I'm this, I'm a respected individual in my society. I'm a mother, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, and so on. You're looking at me wondering, what's the big deal? It feels so natural to you because you've never known any different. You've never been without this burden. You never experienced a day where you didn't have to figure out who you were. Or at least to figure out an identity. You've always had to do it. So much so that you are now so used to it. It's like you can't feel the weight of your body. You can't feel the weight of your own body, right? But get on a scales. It screams at you like, get off. Aren't you sometimes shocked when you get on the scales? What? and get off and try getting back on again in the hope that it'll somehow show a few kilos lighter or something. So you get on the scales and it shows 80, but it surprises you. But you figure you got to understand you've been carrying all that weight all this time, maybe for the last few years. But it never felt like 80, did it? Why? You're just so used to it. That's why. And the same goes for your identity. You don't feel that it is a burden, you don't feel the weight of it, you don't feel it's heavy, you don't feel that it's taxing, you don't feel that it's so much work because you're so used to it. That's why you must become an Arahant one day to experience the freedom that an Arahant experiences. I cannot express it in words. It is beyond words, ladies and gentlemen. It has to be. To be free of the need to define an identity. It seems so second nature to have one and to want one and for there to be one, but no, it's not given for granted. You have to make it. You have to produce it. If you didn't have to go to the toilet, wouldn't you opt for that? If you didn't have to go and do your poo-poo, wouldn't you opt for that? Wouldn't that be nice if you didn't have to do that? Have you never felt the discomfort of having to wait in the queue or in a bus and on a train until you get home or in the car, in traffic, and then you have to find what do you call these places? Rest washrooms, but in these gas stations they have them. There's a name for it. Restrooms? Rest areas. One of those things. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. They have them in these petrol sheds, right? Fueling stations. So to have to wait in traffic until you get to one of these places, just to relieve yourself. Just imagine if you could be without that need, just freed from that forever. Never to have to go to the washroom again. I mean, you can eat, but nothing out the other way. So everything is digested. You don't have to excrete solids or liquids free. I mean, who here wouldn't opt for that? If that was a design option, you could have gone for. I mean, wouldn't you have paid extra for that option? I would. I would have paid extra for that option. Here are some few more options I would have paid extra for. To not have to shave. I would have paid for that. To not have to shower. Oh, I certainly would have paid for that. For instance, these robes, generally I have to wash them not because they get soiled from the outside. If they only got soiled from the outside, I could wear these robes for about several weeks, maybe even a month. Because how often do I go out with these robes? It's only, just a bit of dust. That's all. But once you're in these robes for a day or two, they start to smell. That's not stuff from the outside. That's the sweat coming out from the inside. You transpire. Perspiration. So if I could be without that, I would opt for that. I'd pay extra for that. But we have to settle with what we've got. We can't pay extra, go for more, have more options. No, this is what we got. Right? But so, we are so used to this now, showering, going to the washroom, brushing our teeth, combing our hair. See, some of you, how many hours do you spend in front of the mirror, just doing your hair up? I mean, if you have long hair, you got to wash it, you got to shampoo it, you got to condition it. And then on top of that, if you do what you call this, straightening, coloring, all that, right? It's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. Work that people like me don't have to go through. What if you never had to wash your hair? Just imagine it was always clean, so you don't have all this stuff coming out of your scalp. There's that, the oil and the grease and the sweat and all that stuff. What if you didn't have to do that? And if your hair was just permanently straight? It was always clean, you never had to wash it, never had to shampoo it, never had to condition it. Ladies, what do you say? Huh? Actually, gents, what do you say? That would save a lot of time, won't it? Getting ready to go out. The amount of time you have to spend in front of a mirror just the time to get dressed. What if you didn't have to walk to get somewhere? Wouldn't that be nice? Like the moment you want to be somewhere, you can just vanish and just teleport yourself. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't you pay extra for that feature? So now these things you can imagine, can't you? If you never got boogie stuck in your nose? If you never had bits of food stuck in your teeth? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't you opt for that? Pay a bit extra for that? See, there are many things we would have paid extra for. Not to sweat, not to brush, not to need to sleep. Yeah? Heck yeah. You have no idea how many hours of my day I have to put aside just for sleeping. What a waste of time. Time that I could have spent cultivating my mind, furthering my practice, helping someone else free themselves from suffering. But that time now I have to set aside for sleeping? What a waste of time. Yes, it's a biological need, but what if we could have opted to be without that need? Would you not have paid extra for that? What if, women, you were given a magic wand, and if you wanted a child, you could just do abracadabra? No labor, no 9 months, none of that. You don't have to carry a child, you don't have to feed them, you don't have to do any of that. Would you not opt for that? So anytime you want a child, you press the male or the female button on your wand and just abracadabra. Then you have your child. Would you not have opted for that feature? Paid a bit extra? I mean, these are frills, yes, but we would have most certainly opted for them. Now just imagine, these are things you can imagine. Because being without a self is not something you can imagine. That's why I'm giving you examples of things you can potentially imagine. Imagine not having to wash your hair. Imagine not having to go into the washroom. Imagine not having to walk, but to be able to teleport yourself from here to anywhere else. Imagine not having to brush. Imagine not having to wash. Imagine not having to sleep. These things you can imagine. One thing you cannot imagine is imagine you, but without a self. Because even while you're imagining that, what's going on? There's a self that's being created there. That's why you can't identify Arahanth Wahanse from the outside. For all intents and purposes, they just look the same. They walk, go places, they eat like we do, they sit, walk with us, talk with us, chat with us, sometimes even laugh with us. From their conduct you can't measure them, but they have no need for a sense of identity. That is why they call that ultimate bliss. To be free from the need to have an answer to this. You're constantly trying to figure out, who is this I that is seeing? In every chitta, ladies and gentlemen, you're trying to figure an answer to that problem. Who is this I that is seeing? Who is this I that is hearing? Who is this I that is feeling? Who is this I that is thinking? Even right now, you're asking yourself, who is this I that is listening to the sermon? That's why the greatest victory of all is to defeat yourself. To defeat the self, in this sense, is to identify that this self is merely a sense of self. This is not me at all. See, here's what happens when you understand that you are simply a sense of self and not a self. You stop asking this question, who am I? You stop asking that question because you understand this is only a sensation. This is merely a perception. There is no individual here to try and figure out who it is. There's no identity here, just a sense of an identity, just a perception of an identity. Therefore, you no longer need to try and figure out who it is, who they are. All these questions, they're just out the window. And you go from who am I to what am I? That's a paradigm shift. To go from who am I to what am I? Because out of a process, you don't get a who. What do you get out of a process? You can get a what out of a process, but not a who out of a process. I'm trying to help you to kill yourselves. Oh, that sounds so wrong. The Buddha was the first one to introduce suicide. To kill yourself. This is selficide. To become selfless. We also have this word selfless. We use it quite casually, but not in the way that the Buddha meant it. I mean, selfless giving. He stepped forward selflessly to help his people. Might be a sentence that appears in the dictionary as an example sentence for selflessness. That's not what selfless is. Selfless, because those people, they still have self. And what makes them happy is to see others happy. That is not the same as selfless. So typically when we see people in society and we say that we think of them as selfless individuals, typically what goes on, ladies and gentlemen, is their selves are satisfied, are happy, are made happy by helping other people. When they see others happy, they are happy. But the Buddha's definition of selflessness is not that. It is, there is no self here to be made happy when others are happy. Therefore, others are helped to become happy just for the sake of it. For the sake of their own happiness. Not because it makes me happy to see someone else happy. What's the danger in there being someone here who is happy to see others happy? What's the danger there? Well, the danger is, it's okay for as long as that's what I want. What if that changes? What if that shifts? And what if there comes a day where I am happy when I see others suffer? What if, because there's a potential for that to shift. Because there's still a self. Remember, when we have moha, we can go one of two ways. What are they? Raga and dvesha. Yeah? So, the fact that there's a junction means you can always go one of two ways. Always. In fact, what it looks like is this. If this is a junction of moha, and you have raga, and you have dvesha, let's not forget that they loop back. Like this. They loop back. And because they loop back, they always again have the potential to go back to raga or dvesha. Whether you go to raga or dvesha, you keep looping back. Therefore, you see, here's a good man today. Here's a man who's good. We say he's selfless. In the conventional sense, what does that mean? He likes to make other people happy. He enjoys that. He's happy when other people are happy. Okay? Now he's back. He's back to moha. Now which way he goes is anyone's guess. That's why good people don't remain good forever, and bad people don't remain bad forever. These are not fixed states. They are entirely conditional and dependent on the causes that are present at the time. So what are you? You are just one of these. Seeing, smelling, tasting, then hearing, touch or feeling, and thinking. Why are you only one of these 6 things? Because these are the 6 things that vipakas can do, nothing more. Vipakas can't do anything else. A vipaka can only specialize in one of these 6 ways. They can't become any more than that, anything more than that. There may be fewer options, but there aren't any more options than this. Excuse me. As you go up into the Brahma worlds, as you rise from the sensual world to the Brahma worlds, you no longer have the need for smell, taste, touch. You're left with seeing, hearing and thinking. Once you go into the Arupa Avachara worlds, which are those formless worlds, those are the highest realms in the Brahma worlds. No hearing, no seeing, only thinking. So that doesn't mean that there is no vipaka to come to fruition as one of these other things. It's just that the environment there is only conducive to thinking vipaka to come to fruition. So there are heavenly abodes where there are no physical bodies. Right? So when there are no physical bodies, that doesn't mean that there are no vipakas that could give the experience of a physical sensation. It's just that the environment is such at that time that those vipakas don't come to fruition, like the example I gave you with the glasses, with and without. There's always vipakas either way, either blurred vision or clear vision. They're both there. It just depends on what the environment is. So then come back down into the sensual world. That's why it's called the sensual world. Come back down to the sensual world and now all these 5 sense doors open up. Therefore now you can consume vipakas of all types. This also explains why there is a sensual world. Actually, what is a sensual world? A sensual world is a place, physically, it's a place where you can experience all types of vipaka. What are these all types of vipaka? Seeing vipaka, smelling vipaka, tasting vipaka, touch vipaka, hearing vipaka, right? Thinking vipaka. So sensual world is where you can experience all of these. So take a dog, for instance. A dog can experience all of these. Animals, beasts, 4-legged beasts, they can experience all of these. Human beings, we can experience all of these. Unless, of course, one of our sense organs stop working, or you have some congenital disease. Then, of course, there's no environment to experience this. But that doesn't mean those vipakas are not prepared to come to fruition. If somehow we were able to repair a part of our body that's not working, then those vipakas start to come to fruition again. But if you go back up the realms into the more subtle forms, then there you don't have the need for smell, taste and touch. And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is smell, taste and touch require physical contact. They require physical contact. Smell, the same. So for the experience of smell to happen, you need airborne particles. Yeah, they have to come into contact with your receptors in your nose. So there's a physical contact that's required there. And touch is the same. That's why in those realms you don't have those sense organs because there's no need for it. But that is not to say that the vipakas aren't there and they have all been consumed or exhausted, because if you die there and you're born back again in the sensual world, once again, the environment is now opportune for those vipakas to come to fruition again. So what is the place where none of these vipakas come to fruition? It's called Parinibbāna. So who's an Arahanth? Does an Arahanth not go through these? He does, of course. So he also has seeing vipakas, tasting vipakas, smelling vipaka, hearing vipaka, touch vipaka, thinking vipaka. Even an Arahanth has all of this. What does he not have? I am. That's what he doesn't have. The need to be him, the need to be her, the need to be a self. That's what they don't have. Because they don't have, what happens when these vipakas take place? Energy dispersed. Each time one of these things happen, energy is released to the universe. To become what? Energy, it's just energy. And that energy could once again become this. Of course. See, this could be at some point sight. This could have been sight at some point. To someone? No. Energy. This could have been vipaka energy at some point. This could have been a sight at some point, a smell at some point, but today it's a pen. This pen could someday be sight, touch. It's just a whole body of dynamic equilibrium, that's all. Just energy is flowing left, right and center, that's all that's going on. That's why you are just energy, you're just a body of energy. This is just a body of energy. You are this and this is you. You are the universe. Why do you think you are separate from it then? Don't you feel that you are in the universe? That you are someone in the universe? That's how you feel, right? Like we are in this room right now. When you say you are in this room, are you part of the room? No. When you say I am in the room, you're not part of the room, right? You don't say this wall is in the room. Do you? This wall is in the room. Do you say that? The roof is in the room? Or the ceiling's in the room? You can say the chair is in the room. What does that mean? It's a separate item. It can be removed or returned. So it's not part of the room. That's when we say something is in somewhere or not in somewhere. What about you? You are in the universe, aren't you? We are in the solar system. We are on this planet. And we are in the Asian continent. And then we are in Sri Lanka. And then we are in Colombo. We are in Rajagiriya. We are at Gateway. And then we are in this room. That means you are part of none of those things. What you're suggesting is you're not an intrinsic part of any of those things. You're just a very separate entity. But that is wrong. It's not like that. You are to this room just like this wall is to this room. Yes, physically you can be moved in and out, fair enough, but you are still as much part of this room as the ceiling or the wall is. You are as much part of this world or planet Earth as the oceans, as the mountains, the trees, land and so on. This might sound really absurd, bizarre, confounding. It might do, but this is the truth. I really don't know how much of this is making sense, but this is the truth. Whether you make sense of it or not, this is the truth. It is the truth that you have to try and make sense of. What if you can come to a day where you can you realize that you are everyone else in this room, and everyone else in this room is also you? I'll tell you what, if that happens, or the day that happens, right? When someone's hungry, let's say we're all hungry, who must be fed first? What's the default answer? Me. But if you are everyone else, and if everyone else is also you, now who must be fed first? Then it doesn't matter. Now the hungry should be fed first. Then it doesn't matter what the order is and where you are in that order. It simply matters who is more hungry, who is more needy of it. It's simply necessity. What is a necessity? And that necessity is what we cater to. Then, may I ask you another question, if you don't mind? Only if you don't mind. Okay. So there are children in this world, right? Lots and lots and lots of children. There are homeless children, aren't there? There are children who are hungry. Yeah? Without a mother's love. Motherless, fatherless, homeless, without education. Why do you only look after your child? Why do you only feed your child? Why do you only give your child a home? Because not every child is my child. My child is my child. Other children are not my children. May I ask you another question? Why did you have a child? If you really care about children, if you really care about children and you want to do good by them, right? Why did you have a child when there are so many children who are homeless? When there are so many children who are motherless and fatherless and hungry on the streets, in orphanages, why did you have another child? If what you care about is children, then you could have brought one of them from an orphanage. You could have picked one up from the street. You could have fed them, given them shelter, given them love. Why did you have to have your own child? Because of the sense of self. What are we doing at the monastery now? Are we having our own children? I'm not having my own children. We are taking your children. We are bringing in children from around the world. To us it doesn't matter who the mother is, who the father is, what race they are. Because what we want to do is serve children, do right by them. It doesn't matter to us who they belong to, because we have come to this realization that there is no who for anyone to belong to. Children are children. See, some people will spend a lot, build a mansion for one child, maybe a 3-story house, complete with all the facilities and amenities for one child, when there are maybe 100 children on the same street, but without a home. If you could consider that 100 and your child as the same, now you have 101 children, and whatever resources you had, you could equally split among all of them and give them all a reasonably good future. But that is not how the average mind works. Because the average mind is diseased with the sense of self. Because there's a sense of self, whose child must get the best? My child. Therefore, for my child, I will give a mansion. I will have a swimming pool. I will have go-karts. I will have this, I'll have that, I'll have a playpen, I'll have all that for my child. I'll give them the best education I can in the world. But there are plenty of children out on the streets. No hope, no education, no parents, no love, no shelter, no nothing. And that's okay. And then we talk about equality and fairness. What equality and fairness, ladies and gentlemen? I don't disagree. Those 100 children on the street, perhaps they don't have the vipaka because they have not done the good karmas. Right? They haven't given, so therefore they are not entitled to receive. That's another matter. I'm talking about the way that you think, not about their karma and vipaka. I'm just talking about the way you think, how your mind works. Why do we separate? Why must the best always go to me and mine? The best goes for me and mine, the rest goes to everyone else. Why is that? Why does my child get the slice and other children just get the, what do you call it, the edges? Why is that okay? It's all because of this sense of self. That's why you see street children, because of the sense of self. That's why there's hunger in this world. It's because of the sense of self. That's why there's poverty in this world when there's so much money. Because of the sense of self. That's why you don't see me talking about equality and fairness. That's why you don't see me rallying for child rights or give everyone a place to stay. I don't talk about that. I talk about the root problem. We talk about where the problem begins and where it ends. Because if you can eradicate the sense of self, that is the root from which all these problems stem. I mean, you just take Colombo for instance, right? There's so much wealth in Colombo, collectively, that you can feed the entire nation and have some spare as well. There's enough wealth to house every child in this country. There's enough wealth to teach and educate every child in this country. But that's not what's going on. I'm not suggesting we have to change the system. Not at all. Not in my dreams am I suggesting that. No. It is how it is, and it will forever be how it is. What I'm suggesting to you is, because you have come here for Nibbāna. Because you have come here for Nibbāna, I need to show you the error in that way of thinking. Otherwise, you will never get to Nibbāna. So Nibbāna is served for those who have come looking for Nibbāna. So I only ask you to think, before you have another child, how about you think the Dhamma, contemplate the Dhamma, and see that any child is the same as my child? If you can become everyone else in this room, then everyone's hunger is your hunger. Then everyone's thirst is your thirst. Then everyone's fire is your fire. And everyone's peace is your peace. Dissolve yourself into the universe. Just let the universe have you. It is only possible if you can deal with this, the sense of self. See, that's why to the Buddha it didn't matter whether it was a prince from the palace or Sunita and Sopaka from the streets. Didn't matter. That is the mindset of Nibbāna. We tend to think very small, ladies and gentlemen, typically, because when we start thinking about the self, we tend to think very small. We can't think big. We can't think about everyone. We tend to think about ourselves, me and myself and ourselves and my family. That sort of mentality. Very restrictive, very small. I'm only sharing this story with you because, or not story, but I'm only sharing this with you because I want to help you to get to Nibbāna, that's all. That's the only reason. I'm not here to try and change the world, okay? This is not that. This is not a Let's Change the World conference, 2026. This is let's help you get to Nibbāna. It's a sermon. For each and every one of you to individually get to Nibbāna, you must begin to think like this. It has to be the way you are internally. Not forcefully think like that. It has to be the way you are. Where your child and another child are just the same. This is easy to say. It's very difficult to do when you have a sense of self within. That's why I ask, if two people are hungry, who must be fed first? The one who is hungrier must be fed first. You will always say that until you are one of them. And then your answer will typically be, I must be fed first, and then someone else. This is typical. I'm not faulting you for it. I'm not blaming you for it. This is how the sense of self works. If they said that they were going to give out free money, everyone gets free money. Let's say the government says we are going to give out 50,000. Free money for everyone until stocks last. Let's hope they don't do it on a Sunday. Why? Otherwise no sermon here. Okay, not for 50,000. I see what you're saying. 500,000? 5 million? 50 million? See, when the stakes keep going up, when it becomes something sizable for you, there comes a point where, sermon, I can listen online. Watch it on YouTube, but I had to be in the queue for that. The thing is this, right? So what if you don't get it? Someone will get it. Huh? That's not easy to think, is it? So what if you don't get it? Someone will get it. If there's a jackfruit hanging from your tree at home, or if there's this jambu on the jambu tree, or rambutan on the rambutan tree, it's okay as long as there's no overhang into the neighbor's garden, right? But then there's a problem. What if the neighbor plucks it? Just imagine you have a rambutan tree at home. Right? It's a funny little rambutan tree. So here's your house. Here's the fence. Right? Here's your neighbor's house. Right? Here's your fence. There's a rambutan tree just here. Funny little rambutan tree, because there's one small branch this way and the majority is on that side, like this. Right? And all the rambutans, they grow on this side of the fence. Can you see it from the back? Yes? Just imagine you had a rambutan tree like this. Can I ask you a question? Would you fertilize this tree? Would you water it? Would you fertilize it? Huh? Or mango tree? Or coconut tree? Grows like that. Your task is to add fertilizer. You have to spend for the fertilizer. What you might do is get someone to come and uproot this tree, turn it around, and then plant it back, so that the fruit always falls on your side of the fence. See, here's my question for you. This is only for those who are serious about Nibbāna. Okay? If you're not serious about Nibbāna, just forget this. For those who are really serious on Nibbāna, my question to you is this. Why does it matter who gets the fruit? Fertilize it. Water it. Why does it matter who gets the fruit? What if the monkeys get the fruit? Not this monkey. What if the monkeys, they get the fruit? So what? Someone gets it. But why is it very difficult for us to think like that? Absolutely. It's because of our sense of self. This is toxic for Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a problem with this situation, that's toxic for your Nibbāna. You've got to come out of it. Forget Nibbāna if you can't come out of this. Nibbāna is acknowledgement that this man is the same as this man. It's unreserved acknowledgement. 100% acknowledgement. This man is the same as this man. I am my neighbor, and my neighbor is I. Only when you come to those terms can you truly say, love thy neighbor. How can you love your neighbor if you love yourself more? Because there's one part of that quote, love thy neighbor. Just as you love yourself. To the point where you and your neighbor are the same. But we don't feel like that. That's why when we want to cultivate our gardens, we are very particular about who will get the fruit. Or let's say you have a garden with a house, right? And your plan is to sell it in a few years, maybe say in a couple of years or in a year's time or something. And you have some mango trees. Typically, people will stop tending to them. They won't fertilize it. Why? Because I'm going to go out in a year. What's the point of yielding so much fruit and cultivating these trees if I'm not going to be getting any fruit out of it? What's the point? That is what we call what-ishness? Selfishness. That is called selfishness. I will only do good if it benefits me. I'll give you another example where you will see this happen. This is in the garden. Let's get onto the streets. You're driving around in traffic. typically, okay, not you, okay? You don't do this. I know you don't do this. But have you not seen how the moment there's a slight gap between one vehicle and another, someone cuts in? They may be a mile closer to their workplace, but they're a million miles away from Nibbāna. Because why does it matter who gets to their destination on time? Why does it matter? Why does it matter who gets the spot? But to feel like that, you must feel that they are I and I am them. Do you remember once I explained to you why a Rahatan Vahanse goes on preaching the Dhamma even after he has attained Arahathood? What is the point of doing that? Because he's already done what he needs to do. He's not there to earn merits. Right? Preaching the Dhamma earns merits, yes. But he doesn't need merits anymore because he's already done what he needs to do for himself. So, but why does he then go on foot, traveling long distances? Because he has come to a realization that he is everyone else and everyone else is him. And all that's happened is suffering has ended in one mind, but there are countless others that still suffer. Therefore his task has only just begun. That's the thing, when we think of a Rahatan Vahanse, we feel that their task has just ended. But from the Rahatan Vahanse's perspective, it has only just begun. Why do I say that it has only just begun? Because their Rahatan Vahanse, or their Arahathood, is the final realization that they are everyone else. And they have only just begun. Until they became a Rahatan Vahanse, they thought just a bit more to go, just a little bit more to go. I'm an Anagami now, just a little bit more to go. And the day they become a Rahatan Vahanse, they realize, good heavens, I've only just begun. Because until then they sensed a sense of self and they were looking for their own victory, their own salvation. And there came a point where they let go of that individual for whom they were fighting for salvation. And that is where true salvation was found. To put it quite simply, true salvation is found where you stop fighting for your own. That's why people haven't found freedom, because they're fighting for their freedom. When you stop fighting for your freedom, that is freedom. So if you are serious about Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen, watch yourself when you are in traffic, when you are driving around. Don't be the one who gets that space just before the traffic light goes red, but you put a red light onto Nibbāna. That price is not worth paying. There are so many areas into which you can apply this principle. When you leave the room, switch off the lights and the fans. Not because it's your room, not because it's you who pays the bill, but because someone does. When you use the washroom, clean it. If there's a tap leaking, fix it, at least report it. Not because it's you who pays the bill. Not because it is you who will come and use it next. But do it for the sake of doing it. Do it because a tap is leaking. It doesn't matter whose tap it is. Flush it. Doesn't matter who used it. Flush it. So that it's clean for the next person. If you can teach these principles to young people, they will stop vandalism. But walk into most public places today. Get into a bus. Whatever is not theirs, what do? Vandalize. But they don't do it in their bedrooms, do they? They don't cut the fabric of the chairs, scribble all over their beds and stuff. They don't do that. Not on their sofa, but on the bus. That's okay. On the train, that's okay. What they don't do in their washroom at home, they will do at school. You don't do just obscene stuff on the walls at home, right? But in the school, at the workplace, in public washrooms, it's fine. Why? Not mine. Not mine. Light years from Nibbāna. I mean, what are we teaching our children is what I have to ask. If when you go into a school, this is true of most schools, if not all schools. If you go into a school, you walk into one of those washrooms, you close the door, and what you see in front of you is just obscenity, profanity. Right? Must you not ask the question, what do they teach in those schools? If you go to a public washroom, you close the door and you look inside and you see just people scribbling stuff on the walls, vandalism. Are these the same people who demand a better government? Are these the people who demand to reduce taxes? Because who's going to clean up the mess that they make? It's the government. So how is the government going to get the money for that? By raising taxes. But they will vandalize the whole place and then say, taxes are too high. I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to talk to you. You've got to be different. You can't be like them. Either leave a place as you found it. If you can't leave it better than you found it. But if you can't even leave it as you found it, then don't go there in the first place. Don't go there in the first place. Never leave something worse than you found it. But if you don't teach our children, if you don't teach our young people, if you don't teach our people these things, what hope for Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen? Because they would never do that to their stuff. They would never do that to their property. You don't be the one who takes a toffee or a sweet out of their pocket, unwrap it, put the sweet in the mouth, and the wrapper on the ground. Don't you be the one who does that. If you do that, don't come back here again. Because then your actions are at odds with what you claim to want when you come and sit down in this audience. Because you can't be someone who wants Nibbāna and then go littering out in public. You can't, then it can't be you. Because those two things are mutually exclusive. Because Nibbāna is an acceptance that everywhere is me. Every place is my home. Every home is my home. Every man, woman and child is me. So whatever they get, I'm happy with. If someone in the company gets a pay rise and you don't, what does your heart say? Your mouth will smile, yes. You say, oh, congratulations. Not the king. But what does your heart say? You're not happy with that. Why not? Someone got a pay rise. Someone got the pay rise, so what? Someone got the bonus. Someone got the promotion. Submit your application for the promotion, yes. Submit your application for the pay rise, yes. Whatever you have to do. But when it's results time, be happy with whoever gets it, if you're serious about Nibbāna. When you're waiting to board a flight, and you see there's a first class passengers queue, there's a business class, and then there's people like you and I people like me in the economy class. Typical human behavior is to look at people in business and first class with contempt. Or as you walk past the first class cabin, second business class cabin into your cabin, or rather my cabin, you just smirk at them, look at them with disdain. Feel the money. Why can't we rejoice? Someone's getting first class treatment. Someone's getting it. Isn't it? Be happy. We can't be happy when we start thinking about ourselves, because if I don't get it, then it doesn't matter who gets it. I don't care who gets it, as long as if I don't get it, no. Even if the whole world gets it, I don't care, but if I don't get it, then no. You mustn't be like that if you are serious about Nibbāna. This is only for people who are serious about Nibbāna. I wouldn't be saying this to anyone else who doesn't care about Nibbāna. Because Anya Hilabu Panisa, Anya Nibbāna Gami. The path to Nibbāna is one, the path to worldly success is another. The pursuit of worldly success. That's the right way to put it. Those who are on the track to Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen, typically they get everything they need. Because the universe always provides. If we are all children of the universe, the universe doesn't produce its offspring unless it's prepared to provide for it. So we all come with the promise. The universe has already promised us that it would look after us. Mother Nature has already promised us. When she brought us into existence, she promised us, I will look after you. Let me, is what she said. Just let me. Don't fight for yourself, just let me do it. But we were too smart for our own good. So we started fighting for ourselves. We couldn't wait until Mother Nature provided for us. We couldn't wait until the universe provided for us. When you get into the bus and someone gets a seat, be happy for them. Because that's you. That's you. But unless you can think like that, you'll be asking yourself, why did I not get that seat? How come they got that seat? Sometimes you will see people getting on the bus and reserving seats for others. You not seen that? Yeah, one for them, one for the husband, one for the mother, one for the grandmother, one for the great-grandmother. Yeah, one for the cousin. Right? They will reserve seats. They usually have a big bag of various items in it. So the handbag goes on their seat, and in the handbag they have other bottle of water that goes in another seat. Notebook, another seat. Comb, toothbrush. So they'll walk around the bus reserving seats for for their people. For their people. But isn't everyone our people? Isn't everyone our people? Then why should we reserve a seat for someone who's mine? Just think about that mentality. How ugly it is. Yuck. I'm going to reserve a seat for someone who's mine. Let those who are not mine keep standing. Shouldn't they take out the board on the bus and say the bus to hell or something? After this person gets onto the bus. Then I'm sharing with you things I used to do, and I'm very embarrassed. Things I used to do because this is how I was taught to survive in this world. Or if I could go back and just erase all that out of my past, I would not have accrued all sorts of bad karma, which will one day come back to me, to bite me on my back. But this is what I saw. You got into a bus, you saw people running into the bus and reserving seats, and the first thing that came to your mind was, so that's how you do it. That's how this game is played. Right? So we took that down in our game of life. Get onto a bus, reserve seats for whom? My people. So everyone else is not my people. See, you trust them enough to share a bus ride with them. Yeah? You trust people enough to share a bus ride with them, but when it comes to seats, you're not happy to let them have one. Only you and your people. Not you. I'm just saying that's how people generally are. Once again, if you take these principles and go out and live in society, they will kick you. They'll say, you've gone crazy, what are you doing? People, your friends, when they get into a bus, get into the train usually have to buy tickets, but you get into the bus, you say, go, get in and reserve a few seats for us. So don't come back the following day and ask me, Swami Mahansa, remember that day you told us that you mustn't reserve seats, but when I go out with my friends, they expect me to do that, so what should I do? If you ask me that question, I'll say, next. Don't ask me these questions. What should I do in this situation? What should I do in that situation? Because these situations and that situations are situations for the world. These are worldly situations. You're asking me how to survive in the jungle. I'm talking to people for whom I believe it's time to stop being animals and come out of the jungles and really civilize. Become civilized. Come out of the jungle. Because once you're in the jungle, then it's the survival of the fittest, of course. That's the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. See, just imagine these are the things we teach your children when you hand them over to us. Never fight for yourself. If you want to fight, fight for everyone. These are the things we teach them, ladies and gentlemen. Because you hand them over to us for Nibbāna, right? Not just to give them an education. So if Nibbāna is what they need, then they have to start here. Because when you try to do this, there's a problem. Internally there's a battle. Because internally there'll be a voice saying, hey, but where's for me? Where's my part? I want it. There'll be an internal cry. But we don't let them do what is wrong. And then we tell them, Putta, that internal cry, can you hear it? It hurts, right? That's because of this. And we explain to them. It is because of ignorance, it's because of attachment, it's because of vexation. And if you can free yourself from that, Buddha, and do what is right, without hurting on the inside. We don't simply let them do what's easy or what's popular. We guide them and support them to do what is right, not what's easy to do. That is why I'm sharing these lessons with you as well. What's easy to do and what's popular, it won't get you where it's right. See, now think of your own examples, ladies and gentlemen. Think of your own examples. Where do you find yourselves where you know you fight for you and your own people? How can you start coming out of that box? That selfish mentality. But now, now I'm not just asking you to do it for the sake of it. I have explained to you the Dhamma. I have explained to you why your mind looks for that, searches for that, tries to find something special for yourself. I've explained to you that this is ignorance, this is attachment, this is vexation, this is that sense of self. So if you understand that, then battle that demon. Fight that demon. Don't get into battle with society. Don't do what's wrong. So when you're out on the traffic, in the streets today, in traffic, just because you see a bit of, some headway, doesn't mean you have to cut yourself in and inconvenience someone else. Someone has it, let them have it. If someone's hungry, let them eat. Doesn't have to be me who is fed. If someone's thirsty, let them drink. If someone needs shelter, let them have it. I'll tell you what. Here's where a bhikkhu is supposed to be, right? I think I've shared this with you in the past once. If someone walked up to me and took the only things that personally belong to me, my robes and my alms bowl, and they took it and said, "This is mine, and I'm not going to return it to you." At that point, all I can say is, then so be it. That is where a bhikkhu has to be. But the Buddha didn't just say this is how you're supposed to be. He taught us the philosophy to understand this, the truth behind acceptance of that. Because if someone needs my robe, and if it's going to be of use to them, why does it matter whether it's my body or their body? It gives shelter. It gives cover, it keeps warm. Why does it matter? There have been instances plenty in the past, ladies and gentlemen, where there was a Swamin Wahanse in a kuti or in some makeshift hut, and some just strangers they just walked up and said, "We want to be here," and then they decided that they were going to rest there. What did the Swamin Wahanse do? He packed up. There's nothing much to pack. Collect his alms bowls, collect his robes, and he would just move on. Find somewhere else. Because all he needs is shelter. He doesn't need my shelter. She doesn't need my shelter. She just needs shelter. This is the mindset for freedom. That's all I can tell you. This is salvation. Does it agree with how the world is constructed today and how all the systems and how everything works in the world out there? I know it doesn't. So is my advice practical? No. So why do I share it with you? I have to say something while I'm here. This is the mindset for Nibbāna. And this is why it's incredibly difficult to do in a lay life. Because when you're in the realms of a lay life, there are so many boundaries. There are so many rules and regulations and systems you have to conform to. So many things that keep you trapped, and you cannot escape that. That is why the Buddha established the Sangha Sasana. He said, if you really want Nibbāna, and you don't want to be confined by these regulations, by these systems, by these, what do you call it? Norms, and these restrictions that people have come up with and they have placed for themselves. If you really want to come out of that for the sake of Nibbāna, then there's a place for that. That is why the Sangha community exists, for people who are dead serious about Nibbāna. That's why we must be careful as monks that now that we have come here, we don't spoil this, the Sangha Sasana. We don't go back and make this and contaminate this, spoil this, ruin this. Because the Buddha left us with something very pure. Very sanctified. That is why my invitation is always open to you. Come in. This is the time you plug your ears, right? But wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, do what you can for Nibbāna. Nibbāna is a very practical thing. Try not to be selfish. Try, at least try. At least try not to be selfish. At least whenever and wherever you can, try not to be selfish. If there's a chair and there's two of you, let one of them have it. Let one of you have it. It doesn't have to be you. But that does not mean that you must always offer it to someone else. That is not what I mean by that. If you're the one who is more needy of it, then express that. You have to be smart. This is not to be stupid. It's to be very intelligent. If you are in a bus and there are 2 seats, you're finding it difficult to keep standing. You have a problem with your knees. There's a young man who's about to take his seat. What I have taught you does not suggest that you must just let him have that seat and remain standing. If you know that you need that seat, there's nothing wrong, perfectly. It's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making a request. Sir, I have a problem with my knees. Would you mind if I took that seat? But that's not because you want the seat for yourself. You would have done the same if it had been him. That's the mentality I'm talking about. Service the need, not yourself. Look for the need and service it. How do we do that? Contemplate the Dhamma. Come out of this sense of self. That's when it becomes natural. Until then, it'll be unnatural, it'll seem unnatural. You'll have to fight the internal urge to fight for yourself. Keep on that battle, but the day that you are completely free from your sense of self, there will be no internal battles at all. It will just be the natural, your first reaction. That will be your first reaction. See how blissful that state of mind must be. That is what I want for all of you. That is what I pray and wish for all of you. You're not lay people and I a monk. We are all here for Nibbāna. That's the way I see it. You're not lays, devotees who are supposed to provide for us, folk, for us to get to Nibbāna. That's not how I see it. We're all here for Nibbāna. Whether in white or in saffron. We're all here for Nibbāna. So do you understand the relevance of this contemplation of Dhamma and freeing yourself from the sense of self? That's the relevance. So use this Dhamma for that. I have a short video to show you before we conclude. So recently, there was an offering made to the Sasana. We consume in our kitchens we consume a lot of oil, coconut oil, because we have many mouths to feed, both residents and visitors. You know, if you visit the monastery, we never send you hungry. So there are many mouths to feed every day. And for that we consume quite a lot of coconut oil. But we wanted to find a way to make this more cost effective, because to buy it from the market can be quite expensive, and price fluctuations and all that, and it just becomes difficult. And also to find something good, something pure, something that has not been treated by chemicals and so on. So when we had this need for an oil mill, some of our devotees came forward and they offered it, the equipment for it, as well as a place to house it. It is now in Dambulla, where we have our farm, where we cultivate vegetables and fruit for the monastery. So I want to show you that video, and I want you to rejoice in this collective merit making. Does it matter who offered it? Based on what you just heard a few moments ago, who was it that offered it? Who? Exactly. Each and every one of you. I wanted to show this video at the beginning, but then I thought, no, let's wait till the end. Let me first explain to you the Dhamma, so that you can truly rejoice in this, 100%. If I had showed this video to you at the beginning, you would have thought, okay, someone's made the offering, I'll do a sadhukar. No, it's not someone who made the offering. You were there, you did it. Therefore rejoice in it just the same. Shall we? Who made the offering? Indeed. If you are them and they are you, if the whole universe is one, then let's not separate ourselves out. When a good deed is done, if you cannot be there but someone is there, isn't that something to be happy about? That's why when we established this group called Pinketha, I explained to you that we are creating this group so that those who can come forward and support the mission of the Sasana. You can all do that. Some might only be able to do that with a sadhukara, and that's okay. There will be others who have spare wealth, property, contacts, friends, family, a house. They can come forward with that. It doesn't matter who does what. That's the beauty of this asana, ladies and gentlemen. I really need you to understand and experience that beauty. I talk to you like this because I am seeing that beauty of this asana today. It doesn't matter who does what. It doesn't matter to whom goodness happens, as long as goodness happens. It doesn't matter who benefits, as long as someone benefits. So that is what we established this Pinketha group for. And I said, this is a voluntary group. You can join if you wish to join. You can leave whenever you wish to leave. You can come back again. It's just a platform so that people can support the mission of the Sasana in whichever way that you want to. There will be those who cannot do much, but they can all rejoice in what those who can do. That's what we want. That's the That's the culture I want here amongst our community. That is what Gateway to Nibbāna should be. A culture of collective rejoicing, a culture of collective merit making. Shouldn't matter who does what, to what extent, what quantity, shouldn't matter. Maybe there's one person in this room who can build an entire monastery by themselves. Exactly what we have today, replicate that or duplicate that. Perhaps there's someone here who can do that. Maybe none of us need to step forward then. But we can all rejoice in that. Just as if it was us who was doing it. That is when you move close to Nibbāna. Let's not forget that this is exclusively for Nibbāna. This venture is exclusively for Nibbāna, nothing more than that. I am not paving paths for you to go to heaven. There are many other places where you can achieve that. That is not what this is for. I certainly don't want you to go to hell. But heaven, you can end up there if you fail. That's what I have in mind for you. That's where you will end if you fail this. But what I want is for at least for a few hundred people in my lifetime, at least a few hundred people, at least a couple of hundred, at least 1,000 people. If in my lifetime I can take with me to Nibbāna and free them once and for all from suffering. There'll be plenty more, countless more, of course. Well, someone else will do that. So this is exclusively for Nibbāna. My coming here is exclusively for Nibbāna. My walking to you with my alms bowl is exclusively for Nibbāna. I don't care what you put into that alms bowl. But I care that you do put something into it. Do it wholeheartedly. Trust me, I don't care what goes into it. You can put in leftovers from last night. I don't care. If you are so poor that what you eat is partly moldy, if you are so poor, that's all you can afford. All you can afford is moldy bread. And you eat half, the other half put into the alms bowl. I don't care. If that's how you eat, that's fine. This is for Nibbāna. It doesn't matter what it is you offer. There's no point in building a monastery if at the end of it we haven't gone to Nibbāna. What's the point? There isn't a point in doing these sermons if at the end of it you haven't gone to Nibbāna. If you haven't stopped suffering, there's no point. There's no point running a school or having a children's home or having a rehabilitation center or having an Anagarika Rama if our residents, our visitors, our devotees, they haven't seen the light of Nibbāna. That's what this is for. Therefore, rejoice wholeheartedly. That everyone is capable of, right? It's well within your means to rejoice. How much does that cost? That's the beauty of it. And you get nothing less than whoever puts in the most. Nothing less. Rejoicing alone will not make the venture possible. That is, of course, common sense. That only becomes possible when we contribute in whichever way we can. But Nibbāna is not dependent on that. Does that make sense? That's why this is for your rejoicing. We are doing a very similar project. And those who are members of the Pink Ether group were informed last week. This is for our oil requirement. We also have a rice requirement, which is our staple food item. You can imagine how much rice we must go through in a month. So by this point, it's about 9 tons of rice per month. And the number steadily growing. And then when there's floods and bad weather, of course then rice supplies, they're affected. That doesn't mean we can let our children go hungry, let our visitors go hungry. That doesn't mean we can stop the programs, because then Nibbāna suffers. We're all fighting against time, aren't we? Time, that the battle with time never ends. We can't tell Maria, come back another week because this week we had no rice, therefore we couldn't run the program. Can't do that. Maria comes when Maria comes. Therefore, we decided that it was high time that we secured our regular supply of rice. And that is why next door to this oil mill will be built a rice mill, a granary, where we will stock a year's supply of rice so that no matter how many mouths we have to feed, there will always be a supply. Because as Guru Handro says, there will come a time in the next few years' time where there will be a severe shortage of food in this country. I don't know where he gets his insights from, but in my experience, he's never been wrong. So there's going to be a severe shortage of food in this country. What he says is, when it comes, that will come. But just because that comes doesn't mean we can stop asking our devotees to come to the monastery. We can't shut our gates. We can't ask the Anagarika Mahatmas to go home and come back when we have enough to feed. And we also can't be a burden on our devotees at that time because everyone's struggling at that time. Therefore, it was his vision to set up this mill and granary so that we can stock enough for us to survive a year at least. This is all for the mission of the Sasana. So details about that were shared in the Pinkata group last week. And the beauty of it is, ladies and gentlemen, no sooner than the notice went out, one individual from this audience contacted the monastery and said, I want to do the whole thing. Please may I have the opportunity to sponsor the entire project. So when we made a request back to them, saying, okay, offer accepted, however, this is an opportunity for everyone to come forth and rejoice and earn some merits out of this project. So let's leave it for a little while and allow individuals to contribute their support. And once we have left it for a few days so that everyone has had a chance to get involved, the balance we will present to you and you can contribute. And they were happy to accept that. I think even that deserves a sadhukara, don't you think? The fact that they were happy to accept that. What does that tell you about that mentality? It doesn't matter who. See? That's the beauty of Nibbāna. Merit, yes. We all have to do merit, but not at the expense of someone else's merit. Let's all do merits. Let everyone get involved. Let everyone partake in this merit making. So that it's not just I, but everyone can get to Nibbāna. That is why I love this community. That's why you hold a special place in my heart. It's that mindset, it's that mentality, it's that attitude and that culture. That's what we have been able to cultivate here. This community has done that. The Dhamma has done that to you. You have set your selfishness to aside so that selflessly you can care for each other. And your happiness is in everyone's happiness. These are the hallmarks of Nibbāna, ladies and gentlemen. Soldier on. Soldier on. So we'll leave it there for a few more days. So if you want details of that, you have to join the group. Make a request. I think how you make a request is in the main group. I think you're all members of the main Nibbāna, Gateway to Nibbāna group. If you're not, please join that group. That's where we make announcements about sermons and changes and stuff, whatnot, housekeeping. So please be members of that group. But if you want to be a member of the Pinkata group, that is by request. It's on request. We've made it that way because there may be the odd individual who might not want to be part of that, and that's okay. That's okay. And we don't want them to feel belittled or undermined because everyone else is contributing but I'm not. I don't want them to feel awkward or, that they are judged about it. Man, it's not a condition of your being here. Come empty-handed, leave with a full heart. That is the invitation. You don't have to bring anything. Come empty-handed, come with an open mind and leave with a full heart. That's it. So please contemplate on this. And when you're out driving, who should get the parking spot? Who should get that extra mile? Does it matter? No. So take these insights with you as you go and live your lives. Right, let's call it a day. So next week's sermon will be here. Next Sunday's sermon will be here, which will be the day after Vesak. We have an event for Vesak at the monastery, as we always do. We call it the Paule Buddha Pujava. So all of our devotees and all of our resident monks, anagarikas, children, we all get together for that Maha Buddha Puja. It's a collective merit making, and you're all welcome. You're also welcome to bring something to offer to the Buddha, a small portion, as a family. I think we did this once, last year if I'm not mistaken. I made the same invitation. So as a family, you can bring something to offer to the Buddha. It could be flowers, it could be something edible, right? Whatever you like to offer to the Buddha, but not big portions, a small portion. And you will be given a container to put it into at the monastery, and then we can all go in the Perahara and offer it like we do Dakkhineyo. In Dakkhineyo, you are the bystanders. You watch us do the Perahara, but not this time. This time you can also take part in the Perahara. So that's next Saturday. The program will start at 7. So if you can get in between 7 and 8. 8 is when the Perahara will start, but the event function will start at 7. And Guru Hamdro's sermon will be there, of course, for the second half of the day. Following Sunday, we will reconvene here at Gateway. Okay? Let's take a moment then, ladies and gentlemen, to transfer the message that we have all acquired today. By making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, inviting the Swaminatha to deliver the sermon, listening to the Dhamma, contemplating the Dhamma, and creating a conducive environment for all to practice the path and seek their liberation. First and foremost, let us transfer this message to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasikas and upasikas, who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us also transfer these merits to the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer this message to the Mahanayaka Theras, the Anunayaka Theras of all the chapters who have sacrificed their lives to protect and preserve the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us also transfer this message to my teacher, Guru Swami Nohanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the anagarikas and anagarikas resident at the monastery. Let us also transfer these merits to friends of the monastery, our devotees, who for the sake of merits to help them attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes all of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes and medicines, as well as pass on your know-how and continue to extend their well wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us also transfer this merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employers and our employees, our children, our teachers, as well as anyone and everyone who have helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form. May by the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer this message to the Sakadeva, primarily the gods and deities, as well as your guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer these merits to our forefathers, our ancestors, and people who have passed away in our name, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do. Let us also transfer these merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who lost their lives in the wars, be they friend or foe. Let us also transfer these merits to those who lost their lives in natural disasters and calamities such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara they will all have been parents to us, siblings to us, teachers to us, supported us, assisted us, and have gone the extra mile for us, and therefore with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness and a sense of gratitude for all that they have done for us, let us transfer all the merits we have acquired to all of them. May by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahanths on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who has helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Mahanse or an Arahatiranin Mahanse in this very life itself and in the era of the Sri Sambuddha Sasanaya itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. And the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginneng videtva, dvesha ginneng videtva, moha ginneng videtva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Mamadasya loka Siyalu satvayo Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapa laveva, nivan sapa laveva, nivan sapa laveva. Tunrange susi ananta mahaguna belen siru loka siru satyona Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukta targatva. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.